When I think of who is the worst Power Rangers villain, I can think of many, especially those who didn't live up well in their expectations of being an interesting and compromising villain with an interesting character motive arc and what defines them to be worthy of all along those who are just as evil as he or she. Among those of the worst villains in the franchise, Furio from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy comes to mind. When I released the original video of this Morphin Grid case study archive of Furio for my then upcoming Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film reboot, however, in 2012, I had stated after I recorded the Villamax archive, paper doll, puppet included, that I couldn't be able to find Furio's puppet, but luckily and shortly I did find it. Back in this time frame and a little long before I began this stuff 5 years ago, I would have all of my paper dolls for these characters be in what used to be in my old house's basement long in early 2011. I had actually, my late father had contractors to put down what was new wall-to-wall carpet to match the rejuvenation of the inside of my old house, and one of the managers told him to tell me in terms of my paper doll puppets for my films, which had me infuriated for 4 years as of then 2015, not to bring them up in my room anymore. That. I was then given 3 warnings, with my last one being if I were to bring them to my then bedroom that was upstairs one more time, he would throw them in the trash and I wouldn't have them anymore. That. I was 18 at the time, so I bet you all in my audience watching my revised and re-edited videos like this for the first time will probably tell me, shouldn't you be a little bit too old to be making and playing with paper dolls and blah blah blah. For that I say, that, again, I really don't care. Yes, I know by the time I turn 30 in a few years, at the time of this remastered and re-edit, I will have no choice but to stop making them and making Power Rangers fan film with paper dolls if people don't like it for the characters, because of course, when I opened my PR Lost Galaxy 2014 channel 5 years ago, and even before then, Anthony March 1, and I had announced that I was making a fan film reboot of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, many fans hoped that I was making it with live people in costumes to keep them invested in wanting to see it, but as soon as they found out the fan films would comprise of paper dolls with likenesses of TV and movie actors for the characters, then that's where the detraction from my audience, or what would have been my audience, comes in. They would think I was, according to some on Ranger Board, quote unquote, trolling the fandom in some way or in capacity. I do know that on Ranger Board's fan film forum page, there was a bit of mentioning of me, and the response I got from them about me and my fan film of Lost Galaxy was negative. Eventually, in a separate video, I will fully explain why I make these films in this medium without having them take my content the wrong way as much as possible and badmouth me and think I'm one of those crazies, quote unquote, out in the world or some crap. Enough of that, let's get the Furio already. When I created the original video of this in 2012, I did state that I was tired and stressed out from whatever it was at the time. Again, it had to do with me adjusting to the fact that I was not in high school anymore. I graduated and blah blah blah, and whatever indiscreet thing I was going through was barely in social contact online in person, in which I was lacking at the time. But what does that have to do with my passion for being a fan of Power Rangers? Nothing. Furio is a villain from Power Rangers, and in Lost Galaxy, he was the first villain the Rangers, mostly the Red Ranger, had faced in 6 episodes into the season. Before I talk my fan work, as always, let's talk about Furio from the original TV series continuity. Furio was a cyborg general that once served Scorpius in his army. He was sent to retrieve the Quasar Sabers on the planet Miranoi when Maya and the citizens from Terra Venture, the future Galaxy Power Rangers, reached the Sabers first. He used his sword to turn all the inhabitants on the planet into stone in an attempt to stop their escape. Furio then returned to the Scorpion Stinger as it followed to get the Rangers back to their galaxy. As Scorpius' first appointed general in the series, Furio, whose name is based on the term furious, hence his frowny face, led the brutal attack on Miranoi, seeking to gain the Quasar Sabers and his legendary powers. Not among the chosen, Furio couldn't pull the saber from the stone, just like the many Miranoians couldn't before him. He would then be confronted by Leo, Mike, Maya, Kendricks, Damon, and Kai, and then sent his army to attack the Six, while those Six battled his Stingwingers to protect Maya's people. It was in this awesome battle, the Six were the ones to to pull the Quasar Sabers from the rock. Arranged, Furio sought to destroy everyone in the Miranoi by turning them into stone, and then used his sword to crack a crevice to swallow Leo's brother into it. Furio witnessed the remaining 5 to transform into the Power Rangers. Yeah, go ahead, Charlie Brown Rangers. And he was no match against the power they would possess from the Quasar Sabers. He left the planet and reported to his superior that he was going to retrieve the Sabers for him, but failed. Furio's next encounter with the Rangers would take place on Terra Venture, where he attacked Leo and left abruptly. With Scorpius growing more impatient with him, Furio assigned several monsters to snatch the Quasar Sabers. Just actually one monster, actually. When Horn succeeded, Furio ordered him to destroy them by having been ordered by Scorpius to do so. Furio was in the Lights of Orion episode 6, by the way, allied with Scorpius' daughter Trakina, and sought to gain the Lights of Orion, yet another ancient power source and another component to the Galaxy Rangers' powers and arsenal. Spoilers. In a devious plot to use Leo for the lights, Furio and Trakina managed to trick Leo to believe that Mike didn't really die. Spoilers! The monster Mutantrum disguised himself as Mike to keep Leo's grieving for his brother going. When this plan failed, Scorpius almost destroyed him after having grown tired of his constant incompetence and failures. Desperate to prove his worthiness, Furio in a cave finally stumbles an egg-shaped rock that might contain the Lights of Orion. Before he could retrieve the item to his master, Furio, for his final appearance, is interrupted by the Red Ranger. The two go at it for the final time, and after growing so much exhaust from past battles with Leo, Furio, for a kid show like Power Rangers, commits suicide by exploding himself with them. That's real hardcore. Back in 1999. When I did this puppet cutout of Furio, he looks like a midget. Blame the original printing fool's black and white printer. Whereas my Trakina puppets at the time was taller than any of the puppets that I had created for the other characters. If you can tell, even in my camera's point of view, Furio absolutely looks like a midget, more like a hobbit with a bald head. Ha ha ha. Really? Whereas my then Jerry Hall-faced Trakina in the original video was 6 foot something. Hell, as far as I'm concerned, why do you think Trakina's original actress is 6 foot something? It's not so obvious. I could have made Furio even bigger. Maybe his head, but I think due to his name being in the literal term meaning furious, his body when I made it should have been as big as Barry Bonds and make him look like he has been taking way too many steroids or a ticked off Red Shrek like Ang Lee's Hulk. Other parts of his puppet body could have been bigger like his legs, arms, and shoulder, but sadly, he came out the way I had him since 2011. This was due to that slight problem when I printed him out based on his costume scan from Mega Ranger. During a lunch period in a computer lab in my old school one day in 2011, I was looking through some photos of Power Ranger Super Sentai villain and monster scans that I wanted to use for one of these movies, and when I picked Furio and printed his entire body out, the aspect size and ratio of his body was very small. At least I got Tretron's body in the appropriate size that I wanted, but we'll get the Tretron next time. 15 years later, after his original one-off tenure as a villain in the first 8 episodes of the TV series, Furio makes his first fan film appearance in my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film in 2014.
Looks like you could use a little help. Excuse me? Well, hey, if you wanted the Lights of Orion so bad, why don't you just check out in that cave over there? If to find the Lights of Orion, I was going to see if they were in the rock, in that rock that I found in the cave until I intervened. Bad idea. I say we do need to team up. See you at the next battlefield when you get the chance. But lying heroic nonsense. Your weapons are no match for the power of the mighty Furio. And now I will end you.
The Furio I adapted is very much like his counterpart in the TV show, but slightly when doing the voice of him, imitating voice actor Steve Blum. I made him at some capacity come off a bit like what Goldar would be in the 2nd and 3rd seasons of Power Rangers. Loyal, but be moronic when doing evil deeds for the lead villains of the show as the head ladder's right hand general. Unlike in the TV show when partnering with other villains, Furio in my version teamed up with Villamax, whose counterpart was originally given the Furio when Villamax's costume could not be used at the start of the season because the Sentai villain costumes for Lost Galaxy Sentai counterpart were still being used in filming for Gingaman vs. Mega Ranger, hence why the first batch of episodes for Lost Galaxy had Scorpius, Trakina, and Furio as early focus villains. And his mission to capture the lights of Orion was very much different. Furio in the Martiverse is in the second quarter of the film, near 1 hour in, was to get his hands on the lights and become infused with them. His fate in the film ends once the Martiverse Galaxy Rangers got his hands on the lights of Orion, and that was the end of him. Unlike in the TV series, Furio, alongside Villamax and Trecheron, serves my fan-made, part-copied villain made for the series, Lord Metarex and his Xeon Empire. We'll get to Metarex eventually. Before I end this featurette, I want to bring up what I failed to mention in the last two archives about the villain voices behind Deviant, Kegler, and Villamax from the TV series, in which before I would bring them into my adaptation of PRLG for a fan film. David Lodge was the voice of Villamax. He would also later be the voice of Lokai in Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Richard Casino was the voice of Kegler, and I hate to forget the late Bob Pappenbrook was the voice of Deviant. Furio in the TV series was voiced by Tom Weiner, who, like Pappenbrook and other voice artists, had done voices in other Saban shows and numerous Power Ranger seasons as monsters and villain voices back in the original Saban era. I should note that Steve Blum also voiced Lord Zed in the Power Rangers Super Legends video game for the PlayStation 2, hence why I mimicked his voice for my interpretation of Furio. But very poorly, a very poor imitation, by the way, like how South Park would poorly mimic the voices of celebrities and other public figures, like Tom Cruise, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Kim Kardashian. What inspired me to do so was his many different voices in cartoons, video games, and anime. And yes, even a peripheralist character in the Zombies mode in Call of Duty Black Ops. Also, since I'm also a Power Rangers fan, he also, in terms of Transformers, he also did the voice of Starscream in Transformers Prime. And who would have guessed he was the voice of Golemon in Digimon? Also, Tanami, anyone? Furio is not one of my favorite villains in Power Rangers. I do like his costume design as a villain lifted from the Sentai he's from that wasn't from Gingaman, considering his counterpart's final form was from one of the final episodes of Mega Ranger, unused in Power Rangers in Space, but rather in the start of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Of course, on my list of worst villains from the show, Furio, of course, is on my list of the worst villains from the show following Scorpius, another fellow Lost Galaxy villain, and Captain Mutiny, also another Lost Galaxy villain, and is passed on as forgettable. Well, with him quickly done in cover, now let's move on with the Buzzbrain minions of Scorpius and Trakina's army, the Stingwingers.